Hi there. Welcome back to the British Columbia Youth Parliament's series of parliamentary procedure videos. Amendment motions, or motions that aim to change the text of a bill during committee stage, can sometimes be a bit tricky to word. In this video, I will first go over the names of different lines of legislation, which is important for writing and reading out your amendment motion. Then I will go over a guiding principle for writing amendment motions that will illustrate how not to write one. Finally, I will give a few examples of how exactly an amendment motion might be worded. Lines of legislation are organized like a multi-level list and will take a different name depending on which level in the list it can be found. In Youth Parliament, you will encounter 4 types of lines: sections, subsections, paragraphs, and subparagraphs. As you can see, the 2 outermost lines are called sections and subsections, while the 2 innermost lines are called paragraphs and subparagraphs. Notice how each line type is labeled differently. Sections are labeled in bold Arabic numerals and are often accompanied by marginal notes. These are complete sentences, and each communicate one of the main distinct ideas in the bill. Subsections are labeled with Arabic numerals enclosed in parentheses, and are also complete sentences. They occur whenever a section needs multiple sentences to be expressed. Paragraphs are labeled with letters of the alphabet. They are used for list items that occur within a section or subsection. And lastly, subparagraphs are labeled with lowercase Roman numerals, and they are used for list items that occur within a paragraph. Note that when you refer to a line, you are also referring to all other lines contained within. So take a look at this example bill text, which by the way comes from an actual piece of BCYP legislation. When you refer to section 8, subsection 2 in this example here, for instance, you are also referring to paragraphs A and B from within subsection 2, and not just the main text of subsection 2. It's important to know what different lines are called, since part of writing an amendment motion is specifying which parts of the bill you want to change. After all, amending just section 8, subsection 2, paragraph A is different from amending all of section 8, subsection 2. Again, the easiest way to figure out what a given line is called is by looking at how they are labeled. Now that we've gone over the different line names, I will now go over one way you shouldn't write your amendment motion. The one thing to remember about amendment motions is that you don't just simply describe the change that you want to make, but rather you have to specify, spell out the exact wording changes that you want to propose. You want to be absolutely unambiguous on how you want the legislation to change, so that it's members of parliament who are the ones in control on the wordings of the bills, and not the clerks typing it all up afterwards. For example, if you wanted the camp director to have at least 3 years of experience in camping and childcare, you wouldn't word your amendment motion like this: that section 8, subsection 3, paragraph C be amended so that the camp director needs at least 3 years of experience. The issue with this amendment motion is that it doesn't actually spell out the wording of the change 100% of the way. It only describes the change, so the actual wording of the bill at the end of the day is still up in the air. So now we know how not to write an amendment motion. You can't just describe your proposed change, you have to spell it out word for word. So now on to the core question of this video. How do you word an amendment motion? While there are multiple ways to word a given amendment, as a general rule of thumb, you should try to find the simplest way to spell out all of your proposed amendments. If you want to make a simple change, like adding a few words or deleting a few words, it's probably best to just describe how the words change. Which words are added in, which words are taken out. If you want to make a more complex change, it's probably best for your motion to remove an entire line and replace it with a new line that has your desired wording. So now here are some of the ways that you can word your amendment motion according to what changes you want to make. If you want to remove some words, use the words strike out to identify the words that you want to remove. So for example, let's suppose that one year you decide that the words the execution of in section 8, subsection 2, paragraph B implies that the minister is not responsible for the planning of Camp Phoenix, so you want to delete them. Your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8, subsection 2, paragraph B be amended by striking out the execution of. Don't forget the quotation marks, they are always important. If you want to replace some words with some other words, use the words strike out and substitute. Your motion would strike out the existing text that you want to remove and substitute new text that you want to add in instead. So using the example from earlier, if you wanted to require the camp director to have at least 3 years of experience, your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8, subsection 3, paragraph C be amended by striking out 2 and substituting 3. If you want to insert some new words somewhere, use the words add and after. Add specifies what you want to add in, and after specifies where in the line you want to add your new words. For example, if you want to specify that Project Phoenix, which is an alternative project that BCYP sometimes runs, does not count towards a camp director's additional experience, your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8, subsection 3, paragraph C be amended by adding and Project Phoenix after outside of Camp Phoenix. Make sure that the after part of your amendment motion quotes enough of the original text to be clear enough, to be specific enough about where you're actually inserting your amendment. So for example, if your amendment motion only read after Camp Phoenix, it's not actually clear where your change is supposed to go because the phrase Camp Phoenix occurs twice in that paragraph. You can also add new text before a segment of the original text if it's clearer that way. If your change is something that is supposed to be repeated everywhere, you can use the words wherever it occurs. So let's suppose that you, for some reason, want to rename Camp Phoenix Camp Firebird. Your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8 be amended by striking out Phoenix and substituting Firebird wherever it occurs. So those are smaller amendments, changes that happen within lines. But sometimes you might be making a larger change, and you might want to remove an entire line, or add a completely new line, or completely replace a line with something new. If you wanted to remove an entire line, use the word repeal to specify the line that you want to remove. So for example, if you wanted to propose that staff applicants should no longer need to submit character references, your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8, subsection 3, paragraph B be repealed. Probably not a good idea to actually do that, by the way. If you wanted to replace an entire line with a new one, usually because the changes you wanted to make are too complex to be easily described in terms of striking, substituting, or adding, use the words repeal and the following substituted. Your amendment motion could read like this: that section 8, subsection 3, paragraph B be repealed and the following substituted. So what you would write after the words and the following substituted would be the entirety of how you want section 8, subsection 3, paragraph B to instead be worded. So remember to number the lines that you want to add, especially if the line that you want to introduce contains multiple subsections or paragraphs, etc. If you wanted to add a new line, use the word add to spell out the lines that you want to introduce. Your amendment motion could read like this: that the following section or subsection or paragraph, etc. be added. After the words be added, you would write out the entire text of the lines that you wanted to add. Here it is very important that you number your proposed line, since that will indicate where in the bill your lines will go. However, there is a bit of a small catch if you are adding new lines in between existing lines. Since this amendment motion will not automatically renumber other lines, you might need to use decimal points to avoid having multiple lines be numbered the same way. So for example, if you're adding a new section between sections 4 and 5, you would number your new section, section 4.1, to avoid there being 2 instances of section 5. If you want to add a new paragraph between section 6, subsection 3, paragraph B, and section 6, subsection 3, paragraph C, your new paragraph would be numbered section 6, subsection 3, paragraph B.1. It is a little bit confusing, but it avoids having multiple lines be labeled the same way. This is not an issue if you're adding a line type that is the last of its kind in some area of the bill. So for example, If you are adding a new section after section 7 and the Act only has 7 sections, then you don't need to label your line section 7.1, you can just label it section 8. There's no problem in that. Or if you want to add a new subsection after the 4th subsection in a section that only has 4 subsections. So say section 6 subsection 4 is currently the last subsection of section 6, and you want to add a subsection after that, you don't have to label your subsection 4.1, you can just label it subsection 5. Those are the main ways of wording an amendment motion. It is natural to feel confused and overwhelmed, and it's perfectly fine if you don't have a firm grasp of it at first. Don't worry, there are plenty of experienced people to help you, from house leaders to members of cabinet to members of shadow cabinet and more. In this video, we went over the names of the 4 types of lines of legislation: sections, subsections, paragraphs, and subparagraphs. Sections and subsections are the full sentences, while paragraphs and subparagraphs are the list items. Then I explained that amendment motions should not merely describe the amendment that you want to make, but clearly spell out how the wording of the bill is supposed to change. Then we went over some of the different ways of actually wording your amendment motion: striking out and substituting, adding after or before, repealing entire lines and substituting new ones, or adding new lines. I hope this video helped, and from here I recommend that you watch a video on how to move a motion. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.